you were out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri back in those days. Nobody bothered you. It was just awesome. And so I guess I just became better at doing that work. I mean, I would get into, doing distribution for a while, and I would feel like I didn't want to go back and do transmission. But then when I would fall right back into that groove and just remember how fun it was. And, you know, a lot of guys say that transmission, you got to have a big back and a small mind or whatever, but it's not true. It's just different things that can injure you. I mean, you're worried a lot more about tensions and weights and forces and heights, and it's just different. Distribution obviously can be dangerous, but it's totally different. It's just different hazards that you have to identify and mitigate. So I definitely gravitated more towards the transmission side though. So there was a lineman that I worked with a few years ago, and he would say, if you're thinking about saying something or speaking up, then you should have already done it. Because if you're watching somebody work and you see something that could cause an accident, the time that you take to think, should I say anything, the accident could happen and those guys' lives could be changed forever. And that was really good advice. And I pass that on to a lot of these young guys when they come through. And if I'm able to help with the helicopter class, I mean, I just explain to these guys that you literally are putting your life in those pilots' hands. Go talk to them. See what they did last night. See where they've been working, what their experience is. Go vet those guys. Ask a question, because, if that pilot crashes, he may lose his job, but hopefully it isn't fatal. He doesn't lose his life. If you're on the line, the chance of you surviving a helicopter crash is very low.
You make a good point about throwing caution to the wind a little bit too, and that does come with the age factor, right? Because I remember risking a lot more when I was younger as well in heli work, and because it's fun and exciting, and there's just like there's something happening, and it's cool and it's unique, and not everybody in the world or anybody else that even does stuff like this at all. And if you're not like, if you don't have that fear bone in you, like, and you're willing to just risk to do things like this anyway, it's exciting. But I think that we really do got to watch ourselves. I remember getting carried away as well a couple times, just kind of on that edge a little bit, and it could have gone either way. And you just look back and you're like, wow, like that, like you said, at the top of the structure, man, that was close. It needs to continually be brought up. It's just like, there's no end to this, like talking about this stuff and mentioning this, because there's somebody out there that's going through the same situation right now, and it just went a little different for them. But with the amount of line work happening right now and the amount of heli line work happening right now, it's worth doing all these things that you're talking about. Talk to the pilot, bring stuff up, get on comms, be persistent. Like, don't seem like you're being annoying if you're asking these questions. And that's the culture our industry has to try to breed, because the past culture is like, shut up, like, you be a man, tough it out, whatever the excuse was. But that's not the case. There's different things happening right now than there was back then. It's more involved right now. Line work has changed to a point.
A long time ago, I think it was like 2008, I got on this job and Hurricane Katrina happened. We were right in the middle of this job. And so this contractor was dying to keep anybody they could. So a bunch of guys left along the hurricane. So we were shorthanded and we didn't have the best help. And the guy that was in charge of that job, he was just so smart. And I remember him telling me, everybody's good at something. You got to figure out what everybody's good at and have them do that. And that just clicked for me. I mean, this guy pretty much had almost guys off the street, and we built 15 miles of transmission line successfully on time, overcame all the obstacles that we were dealing with. You know the guys that you can push, the guys that you can rely on in a bind, and the guys that you can't, but you need them all. You can't do this alone. There is a lot of young guys that get into, like say a general foreman spot, and they're going to crack the whip. They can. I'm not going to put up with anybody, slacking off or not being up to par. Well, pretty soon you find out you're doing this stuff alone, and you can't do that either. So that was some of the best learning experiences that I've ever had, was just being a part of that job, and a couple more after that. But some of the best advice I ever got was don't be afraid to hire for somebody smarter than you.
Everyone needs leadership at every level. So you don't have to necessarily be a foreman, because I've seen guys that are absolutely phenomenal linemen, and they're leaders in the lineman role. Like just they excel beyond anybody you've ever. But then the second you put them in a foreman position, they just buckle and they just suck at it. And it's just not the right spot for them. So you put them back in that lineman spot and they just excel again. Like, we need leaders at every level.
The biggest thing to me is taking care of your guys. I think there used to be, when I first got in this trade, a lot of the general foremen that I worked for were yellers and screamers, and it motivated me because my grandfather and my dad were that way. So I grew up, being talked to like a piece of garbage, and I just worked harder. That made me work harder because I wanted them to respect me. Not everybody's like that. So when I first got on the trade, there was still a lot of those guys around, a lot. And I excelled in that environment, but I knew I didn't want to treat people that way if I ever had the chance to lead. And so, I honestly feel like your success as a general foreman or above is 100% on the guys you have working for you. And if they're happy, then, and you give them everything they need to succeed, then they're going to make you look good. Do as many new different things as you can, but don't be in a rush. If I could give myself advice at that age, I would have told myself to slow the fuck down, because I couldn't wait to get through the apprenticeship so I could top out and go do what I wanted. So I wish I would have just taken my time, enjoyed it. But I was in such a hurry. And then later in life, you look back and reflect on that, and you're like, I was, I think, like 22 years old, topped out for maybe a year. Somebody offered me a foreman spot. He grabbed it up, couldn't wait, so excited. And I just wish I would have done some things differently, for sure, that way.
I haven't heard anybody say that yet, but it's so true. I'm just like, I'm thinking about this now, and I'm like, you're so right. People don't realize how long your life can be if you don't die. Like, and your working career could be 40 years. Like, that's as long as I've been on the planet. That could be your working, like, slow down. That's great advice. Just slow down. Just take it all in as it comes. Don't be in a rush to do anything, whether that comes to purchasing that truck or jumping on that foreman job, or just chill.
Ask how much things cost. I mean, inflation's been crazy, but I mean, just the cost of these tools and line work are insane. Equipment is expensive and hard to get. So when you get a new piece of equipment, treat that thing with respect and take care of it. Because if you break it, there might not be another brand new truck ready to go for 2 years. Like that's the supply chain was a real problem. And so we had to get our equipment orders in 2 years in advance, So I don't know, when you know a little bit more of these facts or these things, I feel like you think differently. And I don't know, or maybe just me. I could just be the oddball, but I think for me, it opened my eyes and made me want to do a good job, take care of things, and make the company money.
I was doing a 500 kV insulator replacement project we went over the course of about 3 years. Some of it was bare hand, some of it was de-energized, and it was in a hot corridor. So we had a de-energized 500 kV line and 3 paralleling 500 kV lines energized. So hot as a firecracker, all on one right away for miles and miles, right straight up the belly of British Columbia. And every time we pulled that bond off, we'd draw a 20, 30, 40-foot dragon off of that conductor. It's insane. And it's just like, and it would echo down the valley. And that's every time. People just, they don't get that portion. They just haven't seen how freaking crazy it can be. So if it's that one time that you're in a situation like that, where you've got that kind of, induced voltage on a line, and you just don't realize because you've got away with it for the last 20 years or 10 years, man, it's going to get you. And it's just one of those topics that I just think that people are so hard-headed on and just don't understand. And it's a lot of times it's just it's actually a simple math problem. Like just do the math.
I think induction has always been a hazard, but it's never been a bigger hazard than it is now. And I feel like the knowledge gap is still pretty wide for a lot of these hands out here that, EPZ, grounding and bonding, if you fully understand the theory behind that and why it works, it'll keep you safe. And there's a lot of guys that think that they do it because that's what the rule says, and they don't entirely grasp how to create an equipotential zone. And we still have way too many induction incidents. We had one a couple of years ago, and a guy just got in a hurry, but he flew out, landed on a steel arm, 115, and was waiting on the tester and grounds to be flown out to them to test and ground. And the task was to change out insulators from dead-end polymers to glass. So they needed to know how many bells to put together to keep the tension the same. So, we measured that with a ruler. So for whatever reason, this guy had a metal tape in his pouch, and he just had a brain fart, I guess. I don't know. He's waiting on the tester and the grounds to come out. His crew's all on the structure waiting, and, they weren't paying attention. And he grabs this tape, and he's going to measure the insulator. And it was de-energized, but it was in a hot corridor. And there was grounds on the line. They just needed to put the personals on at that location. And he got hung up on the corona ring, and he passed out. He fell into his lifeline, and thank God it wasn't fatal or more serious than it was. But man, he never thought, he thought there was grounds on. He never thought that hazard was there. And it's just crazy. Recently down in Southern Cal, at the quarterly Red Book meeting, which is like our safety committee for California, the guys were talking about an induction incident. They were in the Mojave River Basin, and there was, I think, 2 500 lines and 2 230 lines that paralleled this 161, I believe, or 115 line. And anyway, they were tasked with just changing out age structures, and they were putting in culverts to account for the potential water rise, I guess. And the culvert was 27 feet long, and they had 7 ground rods driven, from what I understand. They had floated the wire off the old structure, and everything was tied together. They thought they had everything tied together, and the wire got between the boom and the culvert. So linemen went over there just to put the wire on the other side of the culvert. Well, they hadn't bonded the culvert to their grounding scheme, and he got between the culvert and the wire, and they had to use an AED to bring him back. And man, that one hit home, because I feel like that one could have happened to anybody. And so you really need to step back and look at your entire work zone and make sure that everything is at the same potential and everybody understands what that means. Because I still feel like there's a gap. And, Brady Hansen is great. He does a fantastic training. You can tell that guy cares about this industry, and every person sitting in that room feels like he's talking to them. And I wish there was more people like him, because he's only one dude. We've all tried to get him to come do his class for our safety days that we put on. But man, I wish there was like more people that wanted to get into training and have that desire to make a difference, because I just feel like there's a gap out there and we need to close it. Yeah, I think 2 things would make a huge change in the culture in this country: and increase knowledge of EPZ, grounding and bonding, and then improve tailboard. And that sounds so simple, but once you've been a part of that Quanta program and the variant tailboards, and you see how seriously they take, like we always used to say that a monkey could do the work. Once you put the plan in place, a monkey could do it because you're literally just following the steps that are laid out. And when you come upon a roadblock to any of those steps, it's hold on, come down, we're going to re-rig. And why don't we do that more? And then I feel like there's one more thing, I guess, that really kills me, because Michael's is a gas company as well. They do a lot of gas installation and pipeline, and all their operators are required to continue training, and they have what's called operator qualification. So you can't perform a certain type of work unless you've kept up training and certification and tested. I don't know if it's yearly. I'm not sure how often they have to do that. But that's crazy to me, because line work is every bit as dangerous as gas work. And why aren't we treating it like it is? Why are we treating every task as if it's as serious as it could be? Because it can be an easy task, but how serious could it be if things went wrong? Somebody could die. I feel like we need to treat it with the respect that it deserves, and take the time to do a good tailboard. And when something's not going your way, because it's going to happen, we need to all come down and talk about it, get a new plan, and attack it from a different angle.
In Baron work, if there's a problem, your first aid kit is a dustpan and a broom, not, so it matters, but it matters in all levels. And I wish that we could apply the same principle to distribution, right down to distribution work or gas work or whatever it is that we're working on. And I think that we can, maybe not to that extent where everybody stops and you write a new step on the tailboard and everybody signs, but you can still stop work. And I still think if you start with that, just stop work for 5 minutes, guys. Everybody come down, everybody's talk about this, everybody verbally sign off on it, and then go back to work and execute the thing you talked about. Don't do something different the second you get up there, just because you see something different. If you need to change it again, come down again. But I think you could save so much by doing that. And it's not like I can just hear linemen out there, you like that, you need to be productive, or the company this, the company that, he's pushing time on me, I need to be productive, I need, you can hear all of that in the background. But I don't care. It's your life, man. It's your life and your crew's life. Yeah, do the right thing.
Yeah, when I got hurt, that's when I really changed, I guess, the way I prioritize things. I say it all the time in the helicopter class, and I know I've already said it, but I tell these guys, that pilot anyway, in that example, if he has a problem, you have a problem with him, and you question it, you're questioning his livelihood. But if you just jump on the light and go out there and go to work, you're risking your life. So who cares if you ruffle some feathers? Don't go be an asshole, but question anything. And if you're the guy on the crew that blows the apprentice off, or the groundman, or the inspector, or anybody, then you're a problem. Like, you need to listen to any and all concerns and move forward when everybody's comfortable.
So if you could live anywhere else in the world, or live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Puerto Rico, when I was down there. I was only there for a short time, but we went back since for vacation, and my family and we all love it. So, eventually I think we'll probably end up with a place down there, but yeah, that place was super, super awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, it's beautiful. I've yet to get there, but Quanta has a big presence there, so maybe I'll get there soon. If you could have coffee with any historical figure from the past, who would that be and why?
Probably Henry Miller, I think, honestly. Just to kind of pick his brain about what pushed them to band together and what that process was like. Even though I'm in management, I'm still super proud to be a union lineman, and our history has gotten us a long ways. And so it would just be interesting to me to figure out what that looked like. You know, I know a little bit about trying to get men to follow you and you know, do something for the greater good. But man, they lived it. They got it done, and I always thought that was super impressive.
I've been diving into the American Lineman book a little bit lately, just because I've been just doing this little micro series for social media. So I've been reading a little bit about that, and I 100% agree with you. Like it must have been extremely difficult in times like that, because it was so foreign. The idea of doing something like that was so foreign. So to band like a group of people together that were all willing and able and willing to take a stand and like form something like that and say no and fight back, like, damn, man.
Yeah. And risk your livelihood. I mean, and now we have unions. So, you know, sometimes you might be in a contract negotiation that gets contentious, but there's precedent, you know, for that. Back then there wasn't. And
Exactly.
they had to make a decision that this might not turn out well, but this is what we're going to do. And I got a lot of respect for those guys that pioneered the way for us.
Yeah. What a task that would have been. So if you weren't a lineman, what would you want to do for a career?
I don't really know. I mean, I loved farming. I don't know if that was like a career for me. My family farmed, but they weren't any kind of high production or huge farms. So it was a way for them to make a living. I think I always would have wanted a little bit more for myself. I just have kind of always been a go-getter. So a couple of things that I considered after I got hurt was like engineering, stuff like that, staying in the trade, but kind of from a different perspective. So
Yeah, very cool.
I think I'd probably be an engineer, most likely.
Very cool. What's the most valuable tool in your kit? It doesn't have to be a lineman kit. It could be your kit.
Well, I still think it's the ticket, your lineman ticket. You can go anywhere in the world, really, but definitely in the country. And I've been all over. I did a little bit of time in South Africa with Kwana. I went to BC and worked with some of those all-tech guys up there. That was super cool. So just the places I've been and people that I've met, I think that is definitely the most invaluable thing that I have. And even now, I could get tired of what I'm doing today and decide I'm ready to go, and I could go anywhere still today. So, I mean, for me, that's it.
Yeah, I agree. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
Just the overall culture. Like I mentioned, I wish there was I wish there was more of an attitude that what we do is serious and is dangerous, and we should treat everything as such, not blow over the minute tasks, the things that we don't think are important. Because I've been that guy that was hurt, and I've been on crews with guys that have gotten hurt, and it changes lives. I mean, I got hurt and came back to work, but it affected my life. It still does, physically and mentally, the way you think about things. So everything we do out here can hurt or kill somebody, and I just wish there was a little bit more care given to proper planning and execution of everything, all tasks.
All right, cool. Last one. Best piece of advice you ever received?
Probably there's a couple, but I mentioned it earlier, but I think as far as what's made me successful is the guy that told me not to be afraid to hire somebody smarter than you. That's probably my number one. That, and then finding out what everybody's good at, and then using that to your advantage and their advantage.
Love it, dude. That's awesome. All right, guys, I hope you got a ton of value out of that episode. I really enjoyed that combo, and I know I got a lot out of it. Like I said in the beginning, I love that perspective from the line side and management. I think it really opens people's eyes to both sides. And it's I like this sharing of information from management down to the linemen, because we don't get the full picture. We don't get the full story all the time. So I really like those parts of the episode. Like I said, I hope you got some value out of it. If I can do the super duper influencer thing, and get you to jump on YouTube, jump on all of the podcast platforms. Make sure you're subscribed, followed, liked, all those good things. And we'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.